Good Lord, what am I doing? This used to be a somewhat serious channel. I tackled important topics, things that I thought didn't get enough attention, angles that were not explored by other people, even good people, in the alternative media, things like the war in Yemen, the state of the economic bubble, the truth about the war in Ukraine. And now here I am, analyzing the showdown, the Friday night smackdown, featuring Nicholas J. Fuentes, MD, and Mr. Jim Metokur. Now, I have to say, I had no idea what this was about going into it. I did not know that they had any sort of personal beef. I didn't know if this was like some kind of policy debate. I have watched actual, political policy debates featuring Nick Fuentes in the past, which I found interesting. There was the debate between him and Dave Smith on anarchy versus statism. I went into that, of course, a Dave Smith fan and a fan of anarchy. I come away thinking Dave won, but I thought Nick, put up a good fight. There was the debate moderated by Alex Jones between Nicholas J. Fuentes and Robert Barnes on Israel policy. I thought that was a good debate. I went into it a Robert Barnes fan, but someone more sympathetic to Nick's position. Although I did not feel that Nick made the best case for being not a fan of Israel, because Nick pretty much threw out any sort of attacks on the morality of the Israeli state, and pretty much said, well, I don't care about that because it doesn't affect America. I'm against them because the Jews hate us. Which, I mean, he didn't quite go that far, but you could tell that was the undertone. And besides, we know who Nick is. So I do think that Barnes looked better in that debate, even though I didn't agree with Barnes' position. I'm not one of these super pro-Israel people. I don't hate Israel, but it's hard for me not to acknowledge the bad things that they do to Arabs. And so that was the background that I had going into this debate with Metokur. I go into the debate, likewise, just in the last two debates that I'd seen from Nick Fuentes, being a fan more of the guy that Fuentes is going up against, but having an open mind, and I didn't even know what the topic was. I didn't know who the moderator was either. It was a guy by the name of Michael Alberto. Apparently he's a streamer over on Cozy TV, which I didn't realize is apparently Nick Fuentes' platform. I guess I knew that he had his own platform, but I didn't know that he expanded it for other people to do it. But hey, that's good if he did. I'm always happy to see people, building out their own infrastructure. So good on Nick. It was, I have to say, very refreshing to hear the colorful language used throughout this debate. Because it's stuff I haven't heard on YouTube in years, and it's what YouTube used to be like. It reminded me of the good old days of the internet, from like 2008 to really about 2015-ish. 2008 was when I really got into YouTube, if I remember correctly. I don't think I was on it much in 2007. So the moderator, who's more of just a host, he didn't really moderate much, which I appreciate. I don't like when moderators come in and constantly want to make the debate all about themselves and about, the questions that they wrote, rather than just letting the two people up there, hash out their differences. So I did enjoy Michael Alberto's style. I would watch another debate moderated by him if he does so in the future. And so he introduced, of course, the two debaters, and said that it was apparently a debate about prolapsed porn, which was extremely disconcerting. Thankfully, that turned out to be just a joke on his part. I was happy about that. I did not want to listen to a 2.5-hour debate on that topic. If you don't know what that is, don't Google it. Do not ever Google it. I'm sure you don't let morbid curiosity get you on that. It is not something you want to ever know exists. No, it turns out that the debate topic was apparently about the invocation, or perhaps the abuse, of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which is a law that I have a particular bane for. Or, is that the right term? I have particular distaste for. I hate the DMCA. I hate the act of DMCAing, which, for those of you who don't know, to DMCA someone is to claim that they were using, copyrighted material, not under fair use. I remember the good old days when you could, watch, the good old days between when the YouTube time limit was lifted and when they started enforcing the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Back when you could watch, full anime series on YouTube. It was pretty great back in the day, because the bandwidth on YouTube was better than a lot of these streaming sites, other streaming sites, and so you could get HD, like Blu-ray rips. I remember that. I think that was how I first watched Lucky Star, and I was shocked. I'm like, wow, I'm watching this in 720p. And as someone who kind of comes out of the milieu of the Mises Institute, and Murray Rothbard, I am influenced by oh gosh, now I forgot his name, Stephan Kinsella, his book, which I have not read yet, but I've heard his arguments plenty of times. I'm pretty well sold on them, against the very concept of intellectual property and copyright, and how it is just rooted in the English tradition of the king granting monopolies to certain businessmen, in particular industries, and that the idea of intellectual property, which I think I talked about this recently, just kind of comes out of that. It comes out of the idea that the king has the power to grant individual entrepreneurs a monopoly over some business. And so there's no real natural law justification for it. It's not a real property right. It is just a privilege granted to someone by the state. And that's very different from private property rights, which precede the state. The state can choose to recognize and enforce, or the state can choose to not recognize those rights, but those rights exist irrespective of the state. You have a right to your property because you're the one who owns it, because you're the rightful possessor. And it's important to have property rights when we're talking about scarce goods. When you're talking about intellectual property, ideas, by definition, are not scarce. And so, the idea of having a private property right to something that isn't scarce is, it's just an anathema. If it weren't for scarcity, there would be no private property. So to the extent that this was a debate on the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, I came into it pretty much 100% on the side of Mr. Metokur, who is someone, who I'm more a fan of, than Nick Fuentes anyway, irrespective of politics. It has nothing to do with their politics. I find Jim entertaining. I think that Fuentes has been quite entertaining too in the past, in clips, but I'm not going to watch him every time. Metokur, he doesn't stream very often, and so it's easy, it's pretty easy for me when Jim does a stream. Okay, I'm going to take time, out of my day once a month is his schedule now, and listen to at least an hour of, whatever Jim has to say. Because I like his style. I do find him funny. Something that I know Nick apparently does not share in common with me. So let's just get into this debate, if we can even call it that. Now, I don't know if some of you might be able to tell by my tone and how serious I was in this now 9-minute intro. But this was not a debate about serious policy of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. This was two gay retards fighting each other. There was nothing serious about this at all. And I don't say that with contempt. I found it extremely entertaining. I didn't watch the full 2.5 hours. I'll probably watch the last 20 minutes, but I watched 2 hours and 10 minutes of it. I think I watched plenty. And I have to say that there was no real points to be made here. What it was a two-way roast, which, I enjoy. I thought both of them, made some good points in their attempt to smear one another. Although I must say, I do think that Nick came across, over the course of the entire debate, I do think that he came across better and a little more a little less disingenuous. From the beginning, I did get the feeling that Jim was not much, in the mood to play nice. And so I think if you're looking at this from a neutral perspective, and you had no opinion on the debate topic ahead of time, Jim did not give the best first impression. Nick, on the other hand, I do think made somewhat of an effort to discuss the topic at hand. Now, does that mean that he made good points? No. But I thought that his attitude and his tone were a little bit better than Jim's. And that's important when you're debating, not just about abstract ideas, but debating in an effort to convince an audience. And so what was Nick's position? Nick's position was essentially, laws are gay. I don't care about the law, but I will use the law, if I can, to hurt people who are my enemies, even if my invocation of said law is spurious. And so this is not an impossible position to defend. People have taken this position in the past. Some people might characterize it as Machiavellian. I'm not sure that that's entirely accurate, but in a colloquial sense, this is sort of the Machiavellian position. You don't care about, having silly abstract principles, or a sense of justice. It's just that, you will do what you think is best in order to achieve your goals. And I personally don't take that position. I do think that, like Nick said, laws are fake and gay. But I guess I'm not nihilistic enough to then think, hey, let me take these laws that I think are bad and shouldn't exist and use them to hurt other people. Because my problem with bad laws is that they hurt other people. So I would prefer, if there's a bad law on the books, of which almost every law in America is bad, in my opinion, and unjust. There are very few just laws in this country. There are very few just laws in the world. That's why there should be very few laws. The fact that you have to study for 6 years to become a lawyer is proof of how unjust our legal system is. So with that said, my goal would be if these laws are going to remain on the books, which they will, because it's not like you're going to have good people take over Congress and start repealing laws. God forbid. Congress has never done that. The goal should be for these laws to be unenforceable and enforced as infrequently as possible. The goal, rather than trying to get the state to to repeal bad laws, is to become ungovernable, as the meme goes. So the goal should be to obstruct the state and discourage the enforcement of these laws, not use these bad laws to go after people who say mean things about me on the internet. Now, who knows? Maybe, Nick doesn't have the same principles as I do, even though he claims to think that, these laws are bad. And in the words of his friend Baked Alaska, who came on the stream, these laws exist to oppress the white man and are, the product of globo homo or something. Nick later on went to say that, yes, Baked Alaska is a criminal, and he is based because of that. He also said criminals are based, which I interpret to mean that he does not respect the law, something that is not entirely a bad thing. Again, depends on which laws you don't respect. If you don't respect the law against murder, you might be a bad guy. If you don't respect the law against rape, you might be a bad guy. But if you don't respect the law, against using copyrighted materials, it's really hard for me to call you a bad guy. In fact, I think I'd call you a good guy. So I don't know which laws it was that Nick was referring to that Baked Alaska broke or is accused of breaking and, is based as a result of. But to then turn around after calling after calling criminality based, to then go and try and rat on people who say mean things about you on the internet over copyright strikes, which apparently are not even, they were cases of fair use. I don't know the details. I don't watch any of these people. But really, that's a bitch move. If you don't respect the law and then you go and rat on somebody for copyright strikes, I mean, and honestly, out of this whole situation, the person who came away looking the best, I thought, was Baked Alaska of all people, who I've never been a fan of and have never watched. I don't even know where you find him. I haven't seen Baked Alaska in many, many years. I guess the last thing I heard about him was the January 6th. And even when that happened, I thought, wait, Baked Alaska, that's somebody I haven't heard from. It's a name I haven't heard in a few years. But apparently he said that Keemstar, and nobody disputed this, so I guess this is public record, Keemstar called the FBI to rat on Baked Alaska and Nick Fuentes over January 6th. If that's true, didn't like Keemstar to begin with, but bitch move, man. Anybody who talks to the FBI, it's hard for me to ever think of you as somebody who might be a good person. Unless you're reporting, like, a murder or something. And the few cases that the FBI does that actually, like, involve real crimes, that's fine. I mean, I guess, cooperate with them on that. We don't want murderers running around in the streets or rapists or something like that. But other than a situation like that where you got an actual bad criminal, talking to the FBI, you are, an FBI informant is like the lowest of the low as far as I'm concerned. And so after all this was said, I have to give Nick some credit. He said, well, let's be straight here. There is a lot of bad things being done to people on both sides. Both sides are using terrible tactics, and I don't know which the two sides are. I don't know what these people are mad at each other about. I'm totally ignorant of the situation. I guess this is what happens when I stick to using vanilla sites like Twitter and YouTube. I heard a lot in this debate about Kiwi Farms, which is a site I've heard of before. I don't know anything about it. But apparently, it's a place, it seems like some kind of forum where people say nasty things about Nick Fuentes. But anyway, getting back to what Nick said towards the end of the debate, he basically said, hey, we're all terrible people. And we all just need to acknowledge that and not act like some of us are holier than thou, was, I think, the gist of what he said. But what was the actual debate topic? Was the actual debate topic that Metokur and his friends, who apparently, I guess Jim says that internet friends are not actually friends, so Jim and his acquaintances, whoever they may be, this VTuber with a Get Smoked hat, which I have to say, I love the Get Smoked hat from Persona 5. That's a good little thing to put on your VTuber avatar. But anyway, so Jim Flamenco, that was his name, the Get Smoked VTuber, and Keemstar, I guess they're on one side. And then you have Nick Fuentes, Baked Alaska, and Ethan Ralph, who I forgot to acknowledge existed. I guess a lot of this had to do with Ethan Ralph. It seemed to be a proxy war. Nick coming in, defending his good buddy, Ethan Ralph, and Metokur going after him. But by the end of this, I really don't. I was going into this thinking it would be a policy debate, and then soon, thinking, okay, this is a policy debate about intellectual property and the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, and then it just turns into just pure stupidity. Which I'm just saying, it was fun to watch. I don't know any of these. I don't know most of these people very well, and I don't understand why they don't like why they're fighting. They don't seem to really be that different. As Nick said, we all believe in doing terrible things to each other, which are against our stated, political principles or whatever. And so I really didn't get anything out of this, other than, a couple hours of entertainment. It was entertaining. these people just spitting on each other. I think everybody had moments where they looked terrible. One thing I will say is that I do think that Nick made a good point about Metokur's content. Something I've noticed listening to him is that Metokur just kind of goes and looks at the surface level of hey, what scandals have has X person had in the past, and then just sort of like beat that to death on his stream. Which I noticed this with Gonzalo, because Gonzalo Lira, Coach Red Pill. Never watched his Coach Red Pill stuff. I've only watched his Ukraine stuff, which I thought has been pretty great and indispensable. And yes, Gonzalo is clearly a bit of a character. He is rather not extravagant. What's the term? Eccentric. That's what I was thinking of. But he was, making good points about a lot of stuff, about the economy, about the war, all the while, basically reporting from the ground there in the war zone, unlike all of these journos who work for CNN and Fox News in far western Ukraine, barely outside of Poland. Gonzalo was in Kiev first, and then Kharkov, and then he got captured by them, by the SBU, somehow survived, and is now back to saying the same stuff he was before. If I were him, I would shut the hell up after getting disappeared and then reappeared by the secret police of the Ukraine. But Metokur, when he talked about him in his, I think it was his March roundup, or maybe it was his February roundup too. Now that I think about it, what he had to say about Gonzalo was just sort of, baseline level, insults about him, which just seemed to be kind of, basic social media drama about things he said in the past and videos he's deleted and stuff he said about women. And Metokur really had nothing to add, about the Ukraine stuff. And I found it odd. Then I kind of, started thinking, is this what he does with everybody? Because, normally I find it very entertaining. Nick kept harping on, Jim going after Ethan Ralph. Never watched Ethan Ralph. No interest in him. But I do find Jim making fun of him funny. I think he says funny stuff. But suddenly it occurred to me, after seeing, I know, what Gonzalo's been doing in Ukraine is some pretty, serious and respectable stuff. He's putting his life on the line to get information and analysis out to people like me. I don't take that lightly. And, Jim just kind of shits all over him. And seemed to have, no concern when he was, potentially assassinated. And then just kind of, makes a joke when he reappears. And it made me realize, the reason why I like Jim's streams is because they're an escape from the normal serious stuff I watch. And I realized, that's really his limit. He doesn't get into the serious stuff. He's not good at that. He's good at just kind of being aloof and making fun of people, which is fine. There's a place for that. Prior to this debate, however, I had a slightly, I shouldn't say a higher opinion of Nick Fuentes, because I do like, just in general, if you ask me, hey, who do you find entertaining? Or, who do you like to watch more? I have more fun watching Metokur, than Nick Fuentes. I've never watched Fuentes very much. I've seen some funny clips, but I couldn't get through a whole show. But I did take him somewhat more seriously as a person than Metokur, because, Nick tries to do, serious, political talk and things like that, and actually seems to have interest as a political activist, though I don't, I'm not necessarily a fan of his politics. I don't think he'll ever sell me on that. Some stuff he's fine on. Other stuff, I think what he says is stupid. But nevertheless, he seems, I think he has genuine beliefs. But after watching this stream last night, it's really hard for me to, not that I ever took Nick Fuentes very, particularly seriously, but I took it more seriously than Metokur. It's hard for me to take his beliefs particularly seriously when he does stuff like saying that, yeah, laws are gay and stupid, but, if you say something mean about me on the internet, well, then I'm going to copyright strike you. When I'm in charge and I control the police, like as if that would ever happen. When I'm Hitler too, I'm going to use all these dumb laws, go after my people too, or to go after people I don't like either. And you know what? Maybe that's nothing new. I mean, at a certain level, I already knew that that's kind of how Fuentes thought about laws, which is why I, was never a fan of his to begin with. Because regardless of what you think laws should be and disagreements about, legal principles, stuff that's on the level of, well, I think that anything I don't like should be illegal, is just, that's Karen politics. That's a lady wanting to, forbid motorcycles from her neighborhood because she has a neighbor who likes to go ride his motorcycle on Saturday, and she just thinks, oh my gosh, that thing is so obnoxious. I don't like it when he rides it past my house, once a week. So therefore, motorcycles are bad. They need to be illegal. And it's like, shut up, bitch. And honestly, that describes the politics of a lot of people in the world. Most people, I would say, that's their attitude towards politics. Well, if I don't like it, well, then it should be illegal. Well, fuck you. And so at that point, maybe then I can, maybe Metokur just, calling him a faggot, maybe that is appropriate. Oops, I'm not supposed to say that on YouTube, am I? I hope I don't get, like what is it? Like a community guideline strike. Now, I would never call Nick Fuentes that. No, I would never say anything nasty about him or his private life or his mustache or his gesticulation, which honestly I gesticulate quite a bit, even though I don't have a face cam. I still do it. It's like people are standing in front of me. So I would never be one to argue that gesticulation is a subconscious indicator of repressed homosexual desires. But when you put that up against someone making stupid, incoherent political points while acting somewhat serious, I start to think, maybe he's got a point. But still, I come back to overall, throughout the entire exchange, I do think that Fuentes came across as, more level-headed. But, the shtick of talking down to Jim, as if in this forum, Fuentes was really any better is, it's a little hard to take. You can't expect people to take you seriously when you're defending the dignity of Ethan Ralph. And I have nothing against Ethan Ralph. I think he's done some funny stuff in the past too. Again, I only have a tangential knowledge of these people. When they do certain things that might, get some, some publicity or a lot of likes, funny clip going around, that's when I see them. Like that time that Ethan Ralph got Chris Chan's arrest on camera, and he was live streaming it, and he said, "Goodbye, Chris Chan." That was, chef's kiss. That was amazing. That was high quality content. But, Nick, in this environment, trying to roll his eyes and, act somewhat above the fray when Jim just comes at him with, total baseline low IQ insults. It is, it's just hard to take. Nick, if you put yourself in this environment where you ask Jim, who doesn't, who he makes his living off of being silly and not too serious. That is what, that's, I don't want to say that's his brand. Although I guess it is, I think everything he does is just silly. And so I think trying to come into that environment when you're having some kind of, Twitter war, even though Nick doesn't have a Twitter account, I don't believe anymore, with a man who is silly, and then you come in and try and act all serious, it's just stupid. There's nobody really to root for here. It's fun watching them all tear each other down. And honestly, I still don't know what their political differences are. Are Nick and Baked still Wignats are Jim and Keemstar Wignats, or are they not? You know, like, are these people? I mean, these people I don't even think of as political. You know, like Jim doesn't do like much politics stuff. I mean, he'll make fun of politicians here and there, and then Keemstar is not like a big political commentator. I don't know this flamenco guy very much, but he seems like he just seems like you know, part of the Killstream crowd. Even though I guess he's disassociated from Ralph now, but you know, still one of those people at heart. And so, what is there to gain from these people debating each other, or you know, or fighting? Like, I don't understand what they have to fight about. They all just seem ridiculous. And I'm not trying to play the aloof guy here. I'm not trying to play, you know, the character who Fuentes was accusing Jim of being, which I didn't get that at all. I've never, you know, a part of the core of Nick's argument was that, oh, Jim, you try and play this internet aristocrat type. And I thought, well, wait, isn't the internet aristocrat, isn't that a different guy? I've heard that name before. I'm pretty sure that was the name of a streamer in the past, but anyway, I don't know him either, but I've heard the term. So I thought it was strange in saying, you know, oh, you always try and be aloof and above all of the drama. You know, it's like, well, what are you talking about? I mean, Jim is a drama streamer. That's all he does is talk about, you know, people being, you know, doing stupid things and making fun of them. And so that's what I expected him to do to Nick, which he did. And Nick was saying, look, you know, your insults are so lowbrow. It's like, well, yeah, that's who he is. You know, I mean, I again, the thing with Gonzalo reminded me of that. It's like, you know, Jim had nothing that interesting to add about Ukraine or Gonzalo or anything like that, and he doesn't attempt to. That's not why he's there. There's other people who do that. Jim is there to sit in his chair and beclown people. And I think his stream about the what was it, the Killstream Invitational, the bowling tournament hosted by Ethan Ralph, I thought that was hilarious. And I didn't even know any of the people involved. I mean, again, these are names I've heard, but I never watched any of them. I don't. So I guess to end this, I would ask Nick, because, you know, Nick and I are the same age. We had pretty much the same politics before 2016. You know, we were both, you know, these sort of, I think him more so than me, had stereotypical, you know, I don't want to say neocon, but just baseline Republican political ideas. And then, you know, 2016 comes and we both kind of move, you know, away from that, but in different directions. You know, and I don't mean this like to say that we're parallel or something like that, or that, you know, that we're peers or whatever. I'm just saying, as I remember these days, I'm the same age as Nick. So we had, you know, a similar coming of age. And he went in the full Wignat direction, and like, Trump is going to save the white race, and, you know, Rand Paul's gay. And I have to say, like Nick Fuentes, I'm very, you know, I don't have as high of an opinion of Rand Paul as I used to be, but he's still, you know, he's still the best person in the Senate. Well, that's not saying much. And as Nick went, you know, full Wignat and grew out his handlebar mustache, I went full, you know, accelerationist ANCAP, sitting in my suburban bunker, waiting for the economic bombs to fall, for the Fed to jack up interest rates and to take out this whole system, because I knew that they couldn't repeat what they did in 2008, and if they tried to do it again and raise interest rates to 5% or whatever, and we had another financial crisis where there's no coming back this time, and then the federal regime would collapse, and, you know, we'd be at least freer than we are today. That's the direction I took. But the direction that Nick took, you know, has led him, I have to give him a lot of credit, to amassing a serious following of people who really want to watch him, and, you know, who listen to his ideas and agree with him and want to advance a certain political agenda. But that just doesn't mesh with doing a drama stream where you're having a flame war with Metokur. I mean, it's just, you got, I don't want to tell him he has to pick one. You don't have to. You can do silly stuff and also have serious opinions. But you have to kind of separate the two a bit. And it seemed like in this debate that Nick was trying to be, somewhat, hey, the Nick Fuentes, I have ideas, and I'd like to talk about them, and engage with people who disagree with me, like, Robert Barnes or Dave Smith, or, I don't know, I guess it sounds like he said he's friends with Destiny. I don't know if that was if he was being tongue-in-cheek or if he was serious, and I think he's done debates with Destiny and people like that. So he seems like, pretty open guy, but, I mean, that's not what you can't take that same attitude towards a stream with Metokur. Because Jim's going to come out and just call you a faggot. And you can't just school marm and go, oh, there you are with the kiwi farms again. So I don't know what Nick wanted to get out of this. That's what I'll say. And I'm pretty well familiar with both of these guys. I find both of them entertaining and, to differing degrees. Neither of them are in my political tribe. Honestly, I don't watch anybody who's really in my political tribe these days. Because, I know what's in my head, and I don't get so much out of listening to people who agree with me, because I pretty much agree with Dave Smith on everything. So listening to a show, I don't get as much out of it, like as I used to. Which is not to say it's not a great show. It is. If I had more time, I would listen to Dave. I'll put it that way. But I'm more just trying to absorb information. And I don't go to Dave for news. I go to Dave to listen and talk about stuff. So if there was, no news going on for a whole week, then I'd have time to listen to Dave, give his analysis of the news. But analysis is not essential. Analysis, to me, is secondary to receiving the information. But I will say that analysis, which differs slightly from, my own ideas, but is still different, interesting, thought out, that is worthwhile to me. That's not what I go listen to a Metokur stream for. I listen to a Metokur stream because I want to hear about silly, stupid stuff that, may have something to do with politics, may not. When Jim comes on and just roasts this homeless guy living in the desert, do I feel bad laughing? Yes, but at the same time, it's funny. When Jim comes on, and one of my favorite Jim streams was when he went over the story of Yaqub and Yashmal, one of the great tales from the Nation of Islam. And he used somebody else's video, which I didn't realize at the time, and spliced it up. But once I found the original, I was very happy, and I wouldn't have found it without Jim. So I'm happy about it. I thought he had great commentary. It was just funny. It was, and yeah, the Nation of Islam, that is somewhat a political thing. There was just a Nation of Islam shooter yesterday. Oh my God, I forgot to talk about this. And he had the painting of Yaqub, which, maybe he wasn't a Nation of Islam shooter. Maybe he was a 4chan guy who thought it was funny, and he was like, I worship Yaqub. Yes, I'm one of his albinoids. I guess we'll find out about that. Maybe I'll talk about the DC shooter tomorrow. I didn't want to say too much about the DC shooter today because we don't know. It really could go in either direction. This guy could be another crazy Nation of Islam guy. He could be a Fed, because I find it strange that the Nation of Islam has had like the last 5 mass shooters in America seem to have all been Nation of Islam guys. I find that odd. So that makes me think, okay, well, this is continuing the pattern. This is going to be another Nation of Islam guy. So what is the FBI behind this? Why are they pinning all these on the Nation of Islam? I don't know. Not getting into that now. So I guess I'll finish this up by saying I think that I shouldn't say that. I think that Nick lost this debate. Jim did not win it. But Jim I don't think that Jim would show up to a debate to win. Jim shows up to a debate to have fun. And I think that the viewer should go to this debate trying to have fun. If you go in with that attitude, you'll win too. I felt like a winner at the end. I felt like I won that debate because I had fun. Jim had fun. I'm not so sure that Nick had fun. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow, and I don't think I'll be talking about drama streams.